Howdy and welcome back. I'm Steven and this is FWP Reviews. This video has been in the making since December and I'm extremely excited to share it with you despite its niche nature, so bear with me. The CW's The 100 is by far my favorite and most guilty pleasure. It isn't without its flaws, but I absolutely adore it. It is a post-apocalyptic YA fan's dream. This video's been a long time in the making, and with that, I'm glad to present the 100 reasons I love The 100. Following the events of nuclear destruction on Earth over 100 years ago, the Ark orbits around Earth and holds what's thought to be the last of human life. When resource shortages arrive, they send 100 juvenile prisoners to the ground to see if it's habitable. When on the ground, they find a hospitable atmosphere and some inhospitable neighbors. Following this is a long show about love, war, survival, people's people, and most importantly, a whole lot of may we meet agains. I have managed to compile an extremely long and arduous scribbly notebook about all of my thoughts on every single episode of The 100. The show wrapped up last year and I decided it was time for a rewatch. I rewatched the whole show start to finish and I'm really excited to share all of my thoughts with you. Returning after so many years to see the baby-faced cast. On day one, we see Monty and Jasper's iconic friendship already established, and it's a blessing to say the least. Radioactive in the pilot. A bit heavy-handed, but I like the edge. Raven being a badass from the outset and being by far one of the best characters all the way through the show. The intensity that this show has from the outset is admirable. The major character deaths that almost always work and make for some real stakes in the show. Murphy's long journey from absolute dickhead to lovable dickhead. The way this show deals with its serious themes is admirable. It doesn't always do it gracefully, but we still love to see it. It showcases its thoughts on human nature extremely early in the first season, and I admire it for that. We see this play out in the first time the people of the Ark are asked to make a sacrifice, and when they sacrifice the few for the many, it's extremely heart-wrenching, but it's really well done. The long-running dynamic between Octavia and Bellamy as brother and sister is definitely one of the more important elements of the show, and it's a part of the heart the show has. Lincoln's washboard abs. Cue up the photo. You see what I'm talking about, right? Kane's arc from smug bastard to tender lover to a husk of a man weathered by years of fighting, it just hurts to see it. The beautiful love story between Octavia and Lincoln that ends in a really happy way. Early on, seeing Clark grow into an effective leader despite Bellamy's overarching shadow. The fact that bioweapons were pulled out of the bag before the first season was over. What else can I say? Every season finale of this show is an absolute banger. It's amazing how good they are at wrapping things up, no matter how bad or mediocre even the season was. They always seem to give you a great taste of what's to come, and no matter if you're not really excited for it, it still kind of gets you excited. The Mountain Men are an interesting facet of the world building, and I found it really effective to see a different side of what living on the ground would be like during this time. The disgusting antics and the desperateness that we see the Mountain Men go through to try to get back to the ground, it just gives me chills, man. Not the good kind. It's interesting and complex, and the way we see it play out through season 2 is really well done. Jaha and the journey to the City of Light is something extremely cathartic about this show. It fully leans into the themes of faith and the limitations of faith. This is seen really well when we see Jaha and his crew trying to travel to the City of Light. Raven and Wick having that sarcastic dynamic shows just how great they are for each other. Until Wick dies. Like everyone else that Raven gets romantically close to. Reaper Lincoln combined with a oddly good Carol of the Bells remix in a slightly horror-themed episode worked well. A little random, but it did work well. The midpoint of season 2 is incredible as we see the backstory of Finn finally, as we also unfortunately see his death. We see Clark take that first step of bearing it so they don't have to. They end up saying that phrase specifically a lot in the show, but when you really first see it happen, it really rings and resonates with me. Lexa. Her character is extremely well done. Her prowess and performance by Alicia Debnam Carey is always something to behold when it's on screen. Every time she comes on screen, you feel the room shift, and it's just the magnitude of her power that is so frightening and exhilarating. The way that was able to be directed and acted so well is one of the best parts of this show. Season 2's nearly perfect flow. Jaha and Murphy teaming up to get to the City of Life is one of the most underrated duos of the show. The birth of the iconic duo between Octavia and Indra and how we see that evolve through Octavia's future season arcs is extremely fascinating and really builds off of one of the other things I really love about the show. I'll touch on that later. The sexual tension between Clark and Lexa as they're running from the random-ass gorilla. Echo is a certified badass and all-around great character, even from the beginning. The way Amori is introduced as she's fighting for her life in the wasteland and we see her come to odds with Murphy, this really sets up for an effective romance between Amori and Murphy in the future, and the way it's set up, it's just iconic, man. It starts with her trying to kill Murphy, which is a weird way to start a relationship, but it's realistic because who wouldn't try to kill Murphy? Mount Weather stays evil as hell, blowing up that tiny little grounder village evil stuff. Seeing Clark and Lexa have to actually decide between lives and strategic advantage during that missile scene, it hurts. The fallout in the following episode from the missile and the following episodes really doesn't let it feel superficial. It feels like it was something that the show needed to do. Jasper is such an amazing person and character in this show, and the end to his tale absolutely destroys me every time. One underrated thing I loved about season 2 was Bellamy trying to improvise and go with the flow in Mount Weather. It worked really well to see that side of him. Clark by far has one of the toughest journeys in this show, nobody will deny it. They say it a lot, but she does bear it so they don't have to. It can seem corny how they reference it a lot, but it really clicked this time through. The reveal at the end of season 2 about the Allie storyline. It's crazy how the next season ended up relatively mediocre despite the cool gravitas and nature of that story. Seeing Clark as Juan Haida in the intro of season 3 is something that it kind of plays into what's really going on in this world and how word of mouth spreads. It was really effective. Seeing Murphy slowly lose his mind in the lighthouse is one of the best directed and done scenes in the entire show. The grace with which Monty and Jasper's friendships breaks down is just handled so effectively. Their conflicting views on events make it hard for them to communicate. You can see just how much they want to communicate, but they can't do it. Amori and Murphy taking advantage of poor passerbyers is some of the most romantic stuff I've ever seen out of them. Raven's leg actually paying off and being an end for the City of Light was really well done as you see her have a constant conflict through season 2 internally and externally. The 13th station is one of the coolest parts of this show for some reason. During the first few seasons, this 13th station feels like a tying in piece. It really makes all of the narrative points actually feel like they're a part of the same overarching story. Clark and Lexa's enemy to lover relationship. It's endgame. I know. Oh shit. Well, I guess that didn't work out for long, did it? Antari is one of the most badass and underutilized characters in the show, yet the weight she has on this season is still incredible. An extremely great, albeit short arc, but I loved it. Her sitting on the throne bathed in night blood was just so effective to see. Harper is extremely underrated, and her entire story as well as her relationship with Monty are extremely effective. Miller shines in season 3 and is somehow one of the best side characters until the very end of the show. Murphy and Antari's short and bizarre relationship, extremely fascinating. The horror-style episode we see the death of Emerson in was filler, but it was extremely cool to see. The AI kill at the end, I mean, wow, it was gross. It was really gross. The clan that lives on an oil rig, a little random, but it was cool. The way the deaths in this show play out, the fake outs always hit because they still feel real. The show plays its cards really well in that regard. Clark being willing to let her mother die so that the City of Light can't completely take over was extremely effective to see. Lexa's death towards the middle of season 3 was not really well timed at all and felt a lot random. Her send-off in the season 3 finale, though, doesn't make it worth it, but it does give the character the proper send-off she deserves. Seeing her help Clark fight the AI and combat Allie was something extremely effective to see as we're seeing the events of the finale play out in the City of Light. This show is relatively well known for its escalation problem. Prime Fire is one of the best outcomes of that. It was an extremely cool escalation. We get a little off the rails pretty shortly here, but I really didn't mind it, and I thought it was a cool escalation of events, albeit admittedly ridiculous. The intro of season 4 starts what is ultimately a 4-season arc for Octavia. This is when we start to see the rise of Blood Reina through this season, and we see the downfall in later seasons as well as the fallout of that. It is by far one of the best and most well thought out, seemingly, character arcs in the show. Indra's daughter Gaia and the reveal of that. The lore behind the bunker and how we see the fanatic religion created by the grounders about it and how it reflects in the future parallels we see of the fanatic religion that created that bunker. Such a good touch for the end of the show. Octavia dies, but she survives. Luna giving no fucks after the events of season 3. So good. In the middle of season 4, we see the survival themes get heavy. First, we see that play out when Amori lets that random guy get murdered because she doesn't want to be the one that dies. Clark making herself a Nightblood to save everybody because why wouldn't Clark do that? The Conclave was budget Hunger Games, and I loved it. Octavia winning sets up the next season so well, and it also shows us now what she is capable of. Rowan and Luna actually dying in the Conclave as well. Serious balls on these people. Seeing Raven struggle to decide whether or not she wants to live or just die. Seeing her ultimately choose life through the help of her imagined old mentor, Sinclair. It was so emotional to just see her make that decision. Seeing Octavia choose to share the bunker even though the implications are clear. The way that Kane and Jaha realize that no more blood can be shed over the bunker, so they do what they have to do and they gas the people and they start carrying them out one by one using Clark's list, and that scene just hits, man. Everyone coming back for Raven, and then Raven acts like she's surprised as if they wouldn't come back to save her. Come on, everybody loves you, Raven. Season 4 finale is so tense as we just really don't know what's going to happen. And then the time cut. You get a 6-year jump. We get a little tease of what's happening now, and then it rolls into season 5. Seeing that time jump in season 5 is so effective to see played out. We get to see where they're at in season 4, and now we see where they're at in season 5. We get a little bit of backstory about what happened in between those times, and we see how they act different, and it actually feels like a valuable 6-year jump. A lot has changed for these people. 6 years pass. We get to see Maddie finally. Echo and Bellamy are together. Finally. The rise of Blood Reina. Finally. Farrell Murphy. I completely forgot about that. Hilarious touch. The group that was on the arc ultimately has one of the best arcs through the end of the show, and seeing that play out starting now, so effective. I love their dynamic. Jasper's final note after his death in season 4 and Clark finding the note and his goggles. It hurts so bad. Seeing the utilization of the arena in the bunker during their time underground, one crew or enemy of one crew, is what really showcases Octavia's, or more notably Blood Reina's, abilities as a leader, albeit a little bit messed up, but that's what you get. Diozo's such a formidable foe in this season, and seeing now how that plays into her redemption in the end actually is really effective. Clark's motherly instincts over Maddie and her desperateness to protect her. Bioweapons, after being MIA for 3 seasons, finally decided to show back up. We pulled bioweapons out the bag in season 1. I thought this was going to be a regular thing. No? I'm glad they're back. Not glad they're back. Don't make it weird. Abby has one of the more notable arcs in these next few seasons as we see her downfall ultimately with her addiction to pills. Her being pulled out of it by Kane and then having to lose Kane despite her best efforts in season 6 to save him. Man, it sucks. Harper and Monty fully ready to stay alone in that bunker. This actually really effectively leads into the end of the season, and it doesn't feel random. It feels like a cohesive and effective and amazing end to their arc, which is why the final scene of season 5 is one of the best. Talk about that later though. Octavia's return to the throne as blood rain, as the music blares, as she's just sentenced her brother to the fighting pits. Chills. It hurts. Why does this season hurt so much? Who asked for this? Seeing the power of the flame as Maddie wields it for the first time is able to make these people bow. The dark year. The show goes there. I don't even want to say it, so I'm not. But it goes there. The final battle in the valley in season 5 is actually way more tense than I would have expected. I really didn't know what was going to happen, especially that ending. Bellamy not wanting to leave his friends again after the world is ending. Again. Seeing Octavia and Dioza have the two serpents in the garden talk and seeing how that plays into their arcs in the future is really interesting. Seeing that play out when they live with Hope on Skyring is something that is just it's so hard to put your finger on what exactly about that resonates so well, but it just does. The final 9 minutes of this season, as we see Monty and Harper grow old and raise a kid together as the rest of the crew's in cryo because they just can't. They can't keep going on. And it makes perfect sense. And just the way that they're able to so effectively in this show do that, coupled with the great performances of the actors, but seeing just how effectively we see the arc begin as they're living on the ark and it's part of the best time of their lives. And then we see later on when they're willing to stay in the bunker alone because the fighting is just too much. It really shows how him and Jasper finally looked eye to eye as they were unable to communicate before Jasper's end. And the emotion it makes me feel is just so effective. And as they look out onto the new world, he says do better. And that's what he wants. Eventually maybe they do, but they don't just at the start. I love the parallels when they land on Sanctum to the beginning of the actual show. It was so mysterious but so interesting to see. The children of Gabriel are so mysterious. Their relationship to the anomaly really helps back this up. Bellamy being the first to recognize that Clark wasn't Clark. The Mindspace scenes in season 6 were genuinely some of the best stuff in the series. Just the concept of it never felt too heady, but it did feel relatively cool enough as we're seeing them play out in the Mindspace and we're seeing old things pop up from her past. Seeing the Mindspace bring back Clark's biggest mistakes, Finn, Maya, and Allie, so effective. It captivated me and kept it interesting as we see Josephine and Clark's interactions. First of all, their performances are stellar, and the way that they interact in the Mindspace was so effective and it was so biting. The shot of Octavia and Dioza running into the anomaly is one of the most beautiful shots in the entire show. Just seeing the looks and emotions on their faces as they run into this and seeing that play out in later seasons, so well done. Octavia's hallucinations to try to gain her memory back. Pike actually has his best scene in the entire show when he's tearing down Octavia and her memories. Also, seeing Octavia have to fight herself was such a cool turn on events and a part of how we see how she's being differentiated from who that person was. Kane being body swapped, and then as he's giving his dying breaths to save everybody as he floats himself off into space, seeing him return as Henry Ian Cusack's body, it was so effective, and his speech and the way it drew back certain parallels was so effective to see, and it just broke me down. Finally, we get some of Echo's backstory in season 6. And it is so good. Why did they hold out this long? This is the best. She's already a great character, and now you made her even better. It gets extremely dark, though, and seeing her become Echo, if you will, so well done. Clark having to hide that she's Josephine in those really biting scenes as she's trying to sell the act, and then her finally getting to reveal that it's her, and having the short-lived reunion with her mom. the death of Abby as we see her get to see her mom and then immediately get body swapped and then subsequently floated because you gotta float the body swappers. Hope actually feeling like a useful character, unlike Jordan. Really, guys? The moments we see on Skyring are great throughout the final season. Seeing Dioza, Octavia, and Hope live together is the way it all really ends in the end. Seeing Hope train with 2 different disciples and having the rug pulled out from under her on both of those, it's devastating to see what she has to go through. It was a truly well done character in my opinion, and it was a great way to introduce somebody new and still do it well. Bardo, albeit extremely confusing, was a really cool concept. Seeing Murphy and Shedhetta play chess is actually the only good scene that has Shedhetta in it. The backdoor pilot for the prequel series Anaconda was a little cheesy, but it was extremely good, and I hope it does get picked up actually. The return of the bunker is rough, and seeing how they try to cope with that experience is extremely well done. Raven and Octavia ultimately being the keys for the human race to transcend was one of the best decisions the show made towards the end. That scene absolutely just wrenched my gut, and I was extremely impressed with how it was done. Lexa returning as the all-knowing God to test Clark. God, it was intense. I had a lot of mixed feelings about the final season, but that final scene did touch me. Seeing them be able to exist and just exist after all they've been through was one of the best parts about the end of this show. My final thoughts are this. This is the ultimate guilty pleasure show for me, and rewatching it has been a blast, and I just love this show. There are so many moments that just don't quite hit. The show is an effective testament to me. It really just showcases how shows and movies can affect us, and how the finale even made me sad despite my ultimate lack of interest in kind of what was going on. I've got a lot of thoughts about how finales and movie series and TV series in general shape our minds and the way we view the world, and that'll be coming in a later video. That's going to be one that's going to take me a while. It's going to be one of the biggest videos I probably do, and I'm not even ready to put a date on it, but I know one day that's one of my extreme passions to talk about, and I really want to share my thoughts on that. With that, let's wrap this up. I've got a video on the Oscar race next week because I haven't talked about it yet, and the Oscars are next Sunday. I put it off till the last minute because I'm a college student. What else would I do? The week following that, I'm going to review The Falcon and Winter Soldier because it slaps, and I wanted another video to be made about it. I'm excited to keep rolling out great content, and I'm always open to feedback, and I'm just really enjoying this journey of sharing my experience through TV and movies with you guys. Until next time, follow my Instagram at FWP Reviews 100 for daily written reviews. With that, this is FWP Reviews signing off. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.